Hey there, and welcome to Acutely Amanda, a podcast where I share short fiction that stays with you, along with the real life and craft behind it. I'm Amanda, and today's story is about a science experiment. Let's get to it. Informed Consent by Amanda McNeil. The woman closes her laptop with time-wrinkled hands, replacing the distant bookstore's warmth with stark darkness. Walls, duvet, chair. A bell dings from the wall, and an app vibrates her phone against her leg simultaneously. She rises from the single bed and goes out the door, joining the four others like her in the hall smelling of bleach, queuing up for the evening phase of the experiment. Goosebumps prickle on her sleeveless arms. I signed up for this. They're paying me, she reminds herself as they walk down the hall. Still, this isn't what she thought retirement would be like. The end. Older characters in fiction are often relegated to the sidelines, wise mentors, cranky curmudgeons, or tragic figures battling decline. But aging is more than just the loss of youth. It's a rich, complex stage of life filled with transformation, resilience, and self-discovery. So why don't we see more stories where elderly protagonists take center stage? In literature, characters over 80 are shockingly rare, and when older characters do appear, they're often only celebrated if they still cling to youthful energy, starting businesses, fighting crime, or proving they've still got it. But true aging isn't about proving you can still do what you did at 30, it's about embracing what comes next. There's depth, power, and narrative weight in stories about older characters finding new purpose, confronting their pasts, or forging unexpected relationships. Their arcs are often the most profound because they carry a lifetime of experience, mistakes, regrets, wisdom, and love. At the same time, fiction rarely acknowledges the real struggles that come with aging. In public health, the elderly are considered a vulnerable population, often targeted by scammers, left financially insecure due to inflation shrinking retirement funds, or facing age discrimination that makes employment difficult. Some even find themselves pushed into dubious labor just to make ends meet. These struggles deserve space in our stories too, not just the glossy narratives of elderly characters who still move through the world as if they're decades younger. We need more stories that show aging as a natural, valuable part of life, not something to be feared or hidden. Characters don't need to ride jet skis or solve murders to be compelling, though if they do, that's fun too. Sometimes heroism looks like learning to cook for yourself after losing a spouse or rediscovering joy in a nursing home friendship. Fiction can help us reframe what it means to grow old, proving that even in the final chapters, there's still room for adventure, change, and meaning. Now, this story was inspired by one of my older friends, so she is retired, and she, in order to bring some extra money into her home that she needed, volunteered to be part of a research study. Now, I'm not saying there were any problems with this research study. I am a writer, speculative fiction often, and so I tend to extrapolate real life into what ifs that are often worse, although sometimes better. I did find it a little bit troubling, though, that this study needed people to actually live there for a week at a time, once a month. And so, of course, the only people who could participate in that sort of study were people who were what is called underemployed or unemployed. So unemployed is obvious. Underemployed means not working enough hours to make ends meet, or what they would ideally like to be working. So I found it a little bit bothersome that very clearly the study's design ended up by nature meaning only these types of people could participate. Now, I am myself certified with a CITI certification for social sciences research, which is a little bit different than this because while that is on humans, it is not the type of science that this other study was about. This other study was about health in the body. And social sciences is a little bit different than that. It's usually about education. In my case, I was looking at education, but it can also be about like how humans interact with each other and things like that. So I do understand that everybody involved in this study had to be certified and they had to get an institutional research board approval and everything. But like I said, it does bother me a bit that the population that can naturally take part in these types of studies is something that I would call vulnerable. And I started to wonder, what would this look like in an even more dystopian future, where it was a more bothersome type of experiment. But there is some realness in there, inspired by my elderly friend. That's it for this episode of Acutely Amanda. If you enjoyed this story and discussion, drop a like and let me know what resonated most in the comments if you're on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you're watching or listening. And if you'd like some of my longer form writing, please check out opinionsofawolf.com/publications. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Bye.